So welcome to what I hope will be an ongoing, sometimes weekly series called Let's Talk Tuesday. So it'll be mostly indoors. Now, not always in the house. I'll maybe come to that at the end of this vlog, but really just sort of chatting about a few bits and pieces. And I wanted to kick things off for this first week, sort of going back over a project that I undertook during those dark days of lockdown. Now, I, like many I'm sure, observed the lockdown pretty impeccably. We basically set ourselves a little 3 mile route around Portrush, the town that we have a home base in, and once a day for the best part of about 2 months, that's all we did. Once a day, a walk around the sort of Portrush. And I think I wrote about this, or maybe I talked about this in one of my previous vlogs, that's actually doing that really gave me a stronger appreciation to what was on my doorstep, and I really started to see things that I'd overlooked from an observation point of view. And that's what happens when you spend a lot of time in one area, sort of ongoing visits. But what I wanted to do, I think this is probably the first time in my adult life that I, and I'm sure many watching this, have lived through a significant moment in history. And one of the things that I wanted to do was try to capture something during those times that I could look back on after the event. Now, I wanted to do something obviously with the camera, and I thought I would incorporate something with my daily sort of walks, my daily exercise time, or as I like to fondly call it, yard time. Now, I was doing other little sort of mini projects as well, such as taking the same image of a set of steps every day during our yard time, as well as making an iPhone image of the weather outside of our window each day as well. So just little things like that. But I wanted something else that would sort of take me back to, as I say, those strange times. And so what I started doing was with my little Fujifilm, I think it's in my bag, Fujifilm X100T, I just started making images on our daily walk. And one of the first things, obviously, that I noticed was most of the images, or most of the locations that I was walking around, were obviously devoid of people. Here in Portrush, like many sort of holiday and coastal destinations, the holiday seasons and the sort of visitor seasons have expanded beyond just school holidays. And so even during March and April, typically Portrush is quite a vibrant, bustling sort of coastal town. And apart from the handful of people that we would see every day on our yard time walks, Portrush really was devoid of any people. And so that gave me an idea to start making images of the town with no people in it. And so every day I would go out, and on our sort of 3 mile circumference walk, I would just make a bunch of images. And so after, it was about, as I say, 8 weeks, I had a whole bunch of images from the, not hundreds and hundreds of images, but in fact, here's a selection of those images now. So again, devoid of people. And I wouldn't even say, well, certainly not my normal sort of landscape style. Kind of maybe a bit more gritty. Some of it, well, just maybe as an individual image, a bit of a what were you thinking, Nigel moment. But I kind of wanted to sort of capture just some of the, if you know Portrush at all, some of the more iconic buildings, some of the more iconic views, but of course again, devoid of people. So I ended up with a couple of hundred images from those sort of 8 weeks or so, but 7 weeks worth of daily walks. Now it was around that time that I started to consider what I was going to do. What was the end goal for these images? Were they simply going to sit on my hard drive? Was I going to maybe write a blog post and include a handful of them? Was I going to drip feed them into social media? But certainly from a collection point of view, I felt that they stood better as that collection. And so I started to think, would it be possible maybe to publish a book? Now, I've done the odd book using blurb books just for sort of friends and family and things like that, and for my own sort of coffee table. But I just thought, I mean, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and I'll put together a blurb book, and I'll just have a nice collection that hopefully we won't return to those days again, and I'll just be a little reminder of those strange times. And it was at that time that I also saw something appear on Twitter in regards to the weekly competition, Share Mondays. Now this is basically a just for fun type thing where everyone puts up an image that they've shot from the previous week, hashtag Share Mondays, yeah. And then the winner from the previous week gets to pick the winner of that week, and so it goes on. And then the great thing was those images, the winning 52 images from that week, I had to think there, 52 weeks, the winning 52 images ended up being put together in a book. Absolutely fantastic. Kudos to Dylan, who spent time sort of collating all of these images and putting them all together. It's a really, really cool book. I'll put a link down below. Some beautiful images and a real kind of mixture. Obviously, most of them are landscape images, but there's some portraiture work, there's a little bit of macro work, some wildlife images in there as well. Yeah, really, really beautiful. And I kind of thought, hang on a minute, I wonder could I publish one of these? So again, huge thanks to Dylan, who I ended up getting in touch with and just asking a little bit about how he went ahead and put this together. And it was through something called Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon. So first thing first, I needed to obviously cull and sort of create a short list of images that I wanted to kind of put into the book. And so I spent a couple of weeks just going through images and sort of starring them and, you know, color coding them and getting them to the point where I had a collection of images that I thought held together sort of reasonably well in a sort of rough manner. And obviously got rid of some duplicates and things like that. So with those images now shortlisted, it was now a case of looking at sequencing them. Now, digitally sequencing them wasn't really the best way. So I decided to obviously print out these images, even though I wasn't going to be printing the images myself. I decided to print them out, and then I would go through and sort of sequence them myself. And so I ended up with, say, it's actually 60 images from the project, and I was able to then lay all of those out on a table, and I kind of left them on the table for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I would kind of go in and I would sort of take a look at them and, you know, just see what sort of works better together. I also enlisted the help of Nicola, which was really useful, because even just having different eyes, she was able to really come up with some completely different viewpoint as to what sort of held together quite well. Again, just some of the images from the project. I actually quite like the fact that I ended up with these little kind of cards as well, and as you can see, completely not my normal affair. But so I ended up with all of these little images, sequenced them out. And then it was a case of starting to put together the book using the Kindle Direct Publishing. And it was then just a case of putting together a PDF. And within that PDF then, just a case of actually putting together the images. So then it was just a case of uploading that PDF to the Kindle Direct Publishing website, and then, as you would imagine, it just asks you for sort of some details of the book itself. Obviously, I can't go in and edit any of these here because the book has now been published, but it's just things like the size. So I went for an 8x5 by an 8x5 colour book. You can actually design a cover as well, all very self-explanatory. And then obviously you can, this next screen, I won't take you in there, but this next screen, you can go in and talk about the pricing. Now obviously Amazon will take a pretty significant cut, and of course you also have your printing charges to factor in there as well. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a huge money making scheme, but that was never really the purpose anyway. Now, one of the things that you can do with KDP before you publish your book and make it live is you can actually order a draft copy. Now, that draft copy is of lower quality, and it's also cheaper. So you can just order it. I think it was £4 or £5, and so I got one sent over to me. You can see here, obviously, that it's it's the draft copy. And I noticed that when I opened it up, the images were in black and white. And I thought, okay, maybe the images are in black and white during the draft phase. And so I kind of looked through the book and just made sure the formatting and everything was okay. But then I started to think, well, maybe I did something wrong. So I'm back again, and again, huge thanks to Dylan on this. I went back to Dylan and I asked him, whenever you ordered a draft copy of the Share Mondays book, did it come in black and white? And he said, nope. I thought, have I done something completely wrong there? Yep, I did something completely wrong. I'd actually, in the print options, for some reason, who knows, I had gone with a black and white interior with white paper. Go figure. So I then changed it to premium colour interior with white paper, and I ordered another draft copy. So a little bit of an additional unneeded expense there. And obviously, printing in colour, my printing costs went up a couple of pounds as well, meaning that the any sort of artist revenue was obviously reduced there. I ended up with a colour copy. And I have to say, now, one of the other things that Dylan had said to me was, don't be overly concerned if the quality of the print in your draft copy isn't as, perfect or isn't as good as you'd want it to be. Certainly from a contrast and a blacks perspective, because the draft qualities are of lesser quality. Now, I would say that the draft quality that I've got through here is very good in fact. And all the images were made on the Fujifilm X100T, and they were all made with the classic chrome, all JPEG, all made with a classic chrome film simulation. Now, the classic chrome film simulation has a different look depending on the conditions on the day. Now, because it would have been great if we had the similar conditions we actually had, like a lot of people, we had phenomenal weather here for a huge portion of the off lockdown, and I really love how the classic chrome film simulation works with very contrasty scenes, especially if you've got some yellow in the scene as well. But on some days it was a little bit more overcast. But what I really wanted to get out of the scene, out of the book, was just that feeling of emptiness. And I think I've kind of achieved that. So yeah. So once I'd received the correct colour draft copy of the book, I then sent it in once again for review. Now, the KDP have got a couple of review phases. You have a sort of an automated review phase, while you have sort of access to sort of make some modifications. And in the final step, I'm not sure whether it's still bots. It may, but probably is still bots. They do say that it's the team that do it. I had one issue with mine. The book is called #empty Portrush under lockdown. Now, on the front of the book, it's just a little sign that someone had wrote outside one of the keep safe, keep healthy, and see you on the other side. I thought that was quite a nice little sort of title. But on the back, I called it #empty Portrush under lockdown. And I can only assume the error that I was getting was that my reading direction that I put in was from left to right, but my book title suggests that my book title should have been on the right hand side, so on this side. So what I ended up having to do was, the actual final copy of the book does not have any writing on the back of the image, and instead the #empty Portrush under lockdown is actually incorporated in the front title. So once I'd fixed that, published it for the final review, within about 24, probably a bit more, between 24 and 48 hours, it got approved, and now I have a book on Amazon. #empty Portrush under lockdown. Now, I don't think... Oh! So there you go. They said that it would take about 7 business days for the look inside feature to be working. It looks like it is working. Yeah, this is the back title now, and this is the front title, #empty Portrush under lockdown. I now have a book published on Amazon. I'm so pleased that I did this project. As I said, I really, really hope that we don't see times like we observed in the sort of first half of the year again. Now, I know we're not out of the woods by a long stretch of the imagination, but hopefully we won't see, countrywide lockdowns again. But I'm so pleased that I took the time to go through this whole project, and I've ended up with a tangible product at the end of it. It is something that I'm kind of proud of doing. It kind of kept me just that little bit sort of closer to sane during those lockdown times. And again, it just reiterated that point to me, that, on your doorstep or somewhere that you can visit local, the individual image may not stand up to much, but an ongoing repeated visit, it could be just a little woodland, a little patch of scrub. There is projects out there, and actually something like this here, where you're able to end up, even if it's something that you just produce for yourself using a blur book or something like that, ending up with, well, this is the black and white version, hang on, ending up with something tangible and something that, I say, during these very strange times, I've ended up with something that I can now keep forever. And if, one person buys the book, great stuff. I think I'll make enough for the milk that goes in my coffee. But it really wasn't about that. It was about the process of putting together a project, of having my first attempt at sequencing, and I'm sure I've got things wrong in it, going through the Kindle Direct Publishing process, and ending up with a final product. And also ending up with these little bad boys, which I quite like as well. So there you have it. I published my very first book. #empty Portrush under lockdown. I'll put a link below just in case you want to spend a couple of hard-earned pounds on it. But again, it wasn't about that. It was about getting something that was going to collect sort of these strange times, and for me to have something physical that I could have going forward. So that's episode 1 of Let's Talk Tuesday. Maybe see you next week, or it might be a couple of weeks. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.